All righty. It's not ESPN's 30 for 30, but it's my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants in 98 days. I'm not going to get it done in 98 days, but I want to get it done before the beginning of the season. Early, mid-September. Should be able to get it done by then. But we're forging ahead. We're like in the mid-40s already. Hard to believe. We're at the 1944, which is the 20th season in the history of the New York Football Giants, which also happens to be the 25th season in the history of the NFL. NFL started in 1920. Giants started in 1925. So 1944 is a lot of it, had to do with the World War II. It was coming to an end. 1945 would roll around. When 1945, the season started, World War II was over. It ended, I don't remember if it was in July or August of 45, but by the time football season rolled around, the start of the regular season, which would have been in September, World War II was over. So this season here had some interesting stuff, to say the least. It was a very good season for the Giants. They just fell short. They got to the championship game, had a very good team. They just fell a little bit short. You could say they got a little screwed, especially with the schedule. This is missing ring season number 4. Now you can, argue. I mean, you can argue back and forth, but for me, season 1929, 1930, 33, and 44. There are some seasons that miss. To me, also the 58 season, 63 without question, is a missing ring season as well. So, I mean, to me, I guess I would be looking at there's pretty much like 6 seasons the Giants missing rings. I mean, but 1944 was well, we'll get into it as we go along. But 1944 was definitely one of those missing ring seasons. The Giants were could have had another ring. But let's see, 1944 was the 25th regular season in the history of the National Football League. The Boston Yanks joined the league as an expansion team. Also, the Triangle Dayton franchise changed their name to the Brooklyn Tigers for this one season before merging with the aforementioned Yankees the following season. Meanwhile, both the Cleveland Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles resumed their traditional operations. Now, the Cleveland Rams suspended operations for the 1943 season. In 1943, the Philadelphia Eagles were merged with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were the Steagles for one season. Meanwhile, in the 44 season, the Pittsburgh Steelers merged with the Chicago Cardinals for one season due to the player shortages as a result of World War II. The combined team, known as Cardinals Pittsburgh, played 3 home games in Pittsburgh and 2 in Chicago, and set the 20th century record for the lowest punting average by an NFL team with 32.7 yards per punt. Ooh. Not special. Not special at all. The season is notable in that it featured 2 winless teams, the only such case in NFL history since 1935, when the league stabilized from its earlier years of revolving door membership, when winless teams were much more common, as both Brooklyn and Cardinals Pittsburgh finished 0-10. Since 1944, only 5 teams had finished winless in the NFL. 1960 Dallas Cowboys, they had a tie in there, which was, of course, they tied the Giants. The 1976 Tampa Bay Buccaneers were 0-14. The 1982 Baltimore Colts were 0-8-1. It was a strike short in the season, so that's why they only played 9 games. The 2008 Lions were 0-16. The 2017 Cleveland Browns were 0-16. In the case of the Colts, the season was shortened due to a league-wide player strike, while the Cowboys and Buccaneers were both expansion teams. This season ended with the Packers beating the Giants in the NFL championship game. The draft The 1944 NFL Draft was held on April 19, 1944, back in Philadelphia, the Warwick Hotel, with the first pick of the Boston Yanks selecting Angelo Bertelli of the University of Notre Dame. Major rule changes. The free substitution rule is modified so that the substitutes do not have to report to the officials before a play. They just run on the field. Communication between the players and the coaches on the field is permitted as long as the coaches are in the designated area along the sidelines and that they do not cause a delay in the game. And then finally, if the offensive team commits pass interference in their opponent's end zone, it is just a distance penalty and no longer an automatic. It used to be it was an automatic touchback for a few years. So, I mean, you start driving down deep and you have pass interference in your opponent's end zone. That's a touchback. You lose a possibility of, at least get a field goal try. Whew, that's a brutal penalty. Brutal penalty. All right, the division races. Each team played 10 games over 13 weeks. The Brooklyn Tigers lost 7 of their games by a touchdown or less. On October 29th, they had a 14-7 lead over Boston at halftime before losing 17-14. In week 7, the same week, Cardinal Pittsburgh 20-42 loss at Washington, eliminated from contention, while Cardinal Pittsburgh had actually taken a 28-23 lead over the Rams in its first game, played September 24th at Pittsburgh before falling 30-28. Its only other lead was 7-0 in the game at Chicago against the Packers, which eventually lost 35-20. So the Brooklyn Tigers went up 0-10, the Boston Yanks went up 2-8, and the Cardinal Pittsburgh team went up 0-10. The World War II, really depleted the rosters quite a bit. The Western Division race was no contest, as the Packers won their first 6 games and stayed ahead of all challengers. In the Eastern Division, though, Washington was 5-0-1, Philadelphia was 4-0-2, were both unbeaten after 9 weeks. The teams met in Washington in Week 10, which was on November 26th, and the Eagles won 37-7, putting them at 5-0-2, with the Redskins and the Giants only half game back at 5-1-1. It was a very, very good race. Very good race. The Eagles lost while the Giants and Redskins won in Week 11, putting New York and Washington in the lead at 6-1-1. In Week 12, a crowd of 47,457 turned out to the Giants Polo Grounds to watch the Giants and Redskins. Washington had a 13-10 lead before falling 16-13. In Week 13, the Eagles beat the Rams 26-13, giving them a 7-1-2 record finish. Then waited to see how the 7-1-1 Giants would fare in their rematch at Washington. The Giants beat the Skins 31-0, capturing the division and the right to host the championship game. Because remember, in the odd-numbered years, the Western Division hosted the odd-numbered year championship game. So it started in 33. So 33, 35, 37, 39, 41, and so on. The Western Division hosted the championship game. Even number years, right? 44 this year, 42, 40, 38, and so on. The Eastern Division hosted the championship game. So the Giants were the winners of the Eastern Division. They hosted the championship game in the Polo Grounds. Let's see here. Now, this is key. You got the league leaders here. Irv Comp was the league leader in passing with 1,159 yards. Don Hudson was the league leading receiver, 866 yards. But the rusher, Billy Paschal of the New York Giants, led the league with 737 yards rushing. The league leader. That's going to be key in a few minutes here. All right, make sure you remember that. Bill Paschal, the New York Giants, the NFL's league leading rusher with 737 yards. Joseph F. Card Trophy for the most valuable player went to Frank Sinkwich, a halfback from Detroit. All right, now the draft, was held in Philly on April 19th, 1944. With the first overall pick going to Boston Yanks, they selected Angelo Bertelli from Notre Dame. Now, there were 32 rounds in the draft, there were 4 Hall of Famers picked. Let's see. Otto Graham, Steve Van Buren, Bob Waterfield, and Ed Sprinkle were all picked. The thing is that Otto Graham, he was selected in the first round, 4th overall by the Detroit Lions, but he wound up going in the Navy. And I don't know how on earth this works out. This makes absolutely no sense at all to me. He was drafted by the Detroit Lions in 1944. He goes in the Navy, after World War II, he comes out, and then he winds up in the All-American Football Conference with the Cleveland Browns. Now, I don't know how you could wind up, the Lions draft him, and somehow he winds up with the Cleveland Browns. Don't know how that happens. But so 4 Hall of Famers were in this draft. 4 very, very, very good Hall of Famers. I mean, really, really good. Let's see. Van Buren, Waterfield, Ed Sprinkle, Otto Graham. Yeah, all 4 of them wound up winning championships. So a couple of multiple championships. All right, so let's see here. Now the Giants. I'll just go over a few of their draft picks here. The first round, the Giants selected Billy Hillenbrand, halfback from Indiana. Round 3, they took Clyde Flowers, a tackle from TCU. Round 5, they took Vic Maitland, a tackle from Hobart, wherever that's at. Jack Auckland. In the 6th round, they took a tackle from Utah State. Herm Fricke, back from Minnesota in round 7. Round 8, Roy Clay, back from Colorado A&M. Round 9, John Sanchez, a tackle from San Francisco. In round 10, they took Ernie Beamer, an end from Duke. So they've taken a lot of Dukers in the past. Now, once again here, to try to get parity in the league, all right, the teams with the 5 worst records, from the year before, which the Giants happen to be one of them, picked in round 2 and in round 4. Yeah. So in round 2, the Giants took Lamar Blount, a back from Mississippi State. In round 4, they took Herb Kane, a tackle from East Central, which is in Oklahoma. But to get parity, so basically in the first round, all 10 teams picked. Round 2, the teams with the worst records from the 5 worst records from the year before picked. The top 5 teams did not. Same thing in round 4. The worst 5 teams from the year before picked. The best teams from so each team wound up picking 30 players. All right. The best 5 teams from the year before picked in rounds 31 and 32 to make it where each team got 30 players. So basically, I mean, if you had the best record from the year before, your last 2 picks were basically like picks number 300, 290, So guys, there's a good chance they weren't going to make the NFL, but they just wanted to get some parity in there. So that's how they did it. In round 2, only 5 of the 10 teams picked. Round 4, only 5 of the 10 teams picked. So, but that's how they try to get some parity going in the league. So the 1944 draft was back in Philadelphia. That was the 1936. Okay, this is the 9th NFL draft. The first NFL draft ever was held in Philadelphia as well. All right. So the race in the Eastern Division was a very, very close one. Very, very close. I said the Eagles had it for a while. I mean, they were undefeated for a while. You'll start noticing, one of their picks was Steve Van Buren, the Eagles, and Hall of Famer, phenomenal pick. You're going to start noticing the Eagles are starting getting a little bit better. And by the time 1947 rolled around, 47, 48, and 49, the Eagles went to 3 straight championship games. So this is 1944, but you're going to start noticing the Eagles getting a little bit better. And this year, I mean, without question, they were very, very good. And for a while, they were in first place, and they only lost one game all year. What really helped the Giants this year was their defense. Their defense only gave up 75 points all year, which was, I mean, by far the best. No other team in the NFL gave up under 100 points. 131, is that right? Yeah. The closest team was the Eagles. The Eagles gave up 131 points. But the Giants in 10 games gave up 75 points. They gave up 7.5 points per game. Pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. Their offense was very good. They scored over 206 points. I mean, they had a very, very good year. Very good year. Let's see, what do they do? I mean, I said their defense was really good. The defense only gave up 3 touchdown passes all year. They got 34 interceptions. So that would be, so we got 10 games. So basically, they averaged 3.5 interceptions a game. So basically, every 2 games, they picked off 7 passes. The Giants all last year didn't pick off 7 passes. I know it's a lot different. Things are different. I get it. But let's see, the Giants averaged 3.7 yards a carry. They ran the ball 416 times for 1,532 yards rushing as a team, which is really, really good. So, I mean, they did, they had only had 857 yards. They only completed 47 passes all year, and their opponents completed 114. So their opponents completed a lot more passes than the Giants did, but the Giants did a very good job running the ball. Very good. I mean, the Giants only gave up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They gave up 9 touchdowns all year. One of them was a fumble return. Another one was on a block punt. And another one, Steve M. Bjorn, who I talked about, ran a kickoff back. 97 yards. So basically, I mean, they gave up like six touchdowns to defense. I mean, just a phenomenal defense. They kicked 7 field goals all year. They kicked 25 out of 26 extra points. They only gave up 4 successful field goals all year, their defense, and they only gave up 9 touchdowns all year. I mean, a very, very good defensive effort. Really good. I mean, as I said, they averaged, They averaged 20.6 points per game, and they gave up 7.5 points per game. So, I mean, a very, very good season all around. But, I mean, they started off, I mean, as always, the Giants always start off on the road because they're sharing the polo grounds with the New York Giants, and they wanted to make sure that the baseball season was over with. And I'm sure that, I guess, maybe any possibility of the World Series, if the World Series was played at the polo grounds, that would be over with as well. So the Giants didn't play their first home game until October 22nd. So once again, the Giants always started at least the first 2 and up to their first 4 games on the road. But this year it was the first 2 games. The first game of the season was against the Boston Yanks. All right, they played on the road. Let me see, would that be in Fenway Park? Because that's where the Boston Braves used to play. The Boston actually turned into the Boston Redskins. Yeah, Fenway Park. Yep. There you go. Okay. So when the Giants played the Boston Yanks, it's in Fenway Park on October 8th. The Giants' first game of the season was October 8th, which wound up really screwing them later on. And I'll go over it. Let me see here. See, the Green Bay Packers' first game, now this is important, was September 17th. Green Bay Packers' first game was 3 weeks before the Giants started on October 8th. When the Giants played their first game and they won, the Giants were 1-0. Okay. On October 8th, the Packers played their 4th game. So they were 3, which wind up being huge as we go along here. You know, I'll point this out here, but as we go along. But the fact that the Packers started their season 3 weeks before the Giants did wind up being huge. So as we go along, I will definitely point this out. But, I mean, it said that, the Giants, let's see here. First game, they won 22-10. Second week, they played the Brooklyn Tigers, which were the Brooklyn Dodgers. They turned into the Brooklyn Tigers for one season. The Giants won. Okay, on October 15th, they won 14-7. So now the Giants are 2-0. They come home to play the Pittsburgh Cardinals Steelers team. All right, they wind up winning 23-0 because that team was the Pittsburgh team was absolutely horrible. So the Giants won 23-0. That was their first home game, was on October 22nd. Now the Giants are 3-0. Their fourth game of the season went up to the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost 24-17 at home. So now the Giants have a loss, and the Eagles are now undefeated. So now the Eagles are in first place. The following week on November 5th, the Boston Yanks come to town. The Giants win 31-0 because the Yankees, that was a horrible team. All right, so now the Giants are 4-1. The following week, the Giants go on the road, play the Eagles once again. They tie them. So 4-1-1. So now the Giants played the Eagles 2 times. They lost to them and they tied them. The Giants did not beat the Eagles all season long. All right. Now let's see. Okay, after November 12th, the Giants are 4-1-1. And on November 12th, the Eagles were 4-0-2. So they had a couple ties, a couple little blemishes, but just ties. So the Eagles were still undefeated. The Giants had a loss. All right, the following week, the Green Bay Packers. See, now this is the team that the Giants faced in the championship game. The Green Bay Packers came to town at the Polo Grounds where the championship game is going to be played. The Giants beat the Packers 24-0. Now the Giants are 5-1-1. The following week, the Brooklyn Tigers come to town. The Giants beat them 7-0. So now the Giants are 6-1-1. On November 26th, 6-1-1. That same day, the Chicago Bears beat the Philadelphia Eagles. So now the Giants are 6-1-1. The Philadelphia Eagles are 5-1-2. So the Eagles finally got their first loss. The Chicago Bears, thankfully for the Chicago Bears, they wind up beating the Philadelphia Eagles. If it was not for the Chicago Bears, the Philadelphia Eagles might have won the division because they might have been undefeated. They might have had a couple ties, but they might have had no losses. So thankful for the Chicago Bears who beat the Philadelphia Eagles. If not for them, the Eagles might have won the division. So that was a big game. On November 26th, the Bears beat the Eagles 28-7, giving the Philadelphia Eagles their only loss of the whole season. Because the next 2 games for the Eagles, they beat the Brooklyn Tigers 34-0. The final game of the season, they beat the Cleveland Rams 26-13. So the Eagles finished 7-1-2. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, after the Giants beat the Brooklyn Tigers, they were 6-1-1. Then they wound up had to play the Redskins. Tough team. Always tough for the Giants. The Giants beat the Redskins 2 times in a row. They beat them 16-13 at home on December 3rd, putting them at 7-1-1. And then the final game of the season, the Giants played in Washington against the Redskins, and they won 31-0. And they wound up finishing 8-1-1. So since the Eagles were 7-1-2, the Giants had one more win. So the Giants were 8-1-1 compared to 7-1-2. The Giants wound up winning the division. Now, but the thing is here, okay, is what I was pointing out, is the Giants season ended on December 10th. The Green Bay Packers season ended November 26th. So the Green Bay Packers season ended 2 weeks before the Giants season did. So the Green Bay Packers sitting around for 2 weeks. Now you could say you get a little rusty here, a little rusty there, but also back then, I mean, even nowadays, you're resting up. The Green Bay Packers had 3 weeks to rest up before the championship game. 3 weeks. The Giants had 1. Not fair. Not fair. And especially because if you consider the fact that the Giants in one of their games, one of their star players, okay, which I rattled off, okay, Bill Paschal, hurt his ankle, sprained his ankle, and really couldn't go for the championship game. So the Giants not only basically had 1 week off before the championship game. The Packers had 3 weeks off before the championship game. The Giants, one of his best player, couldn't play. And the Giants actually lost another player during the game as well, too. So the Giants, had some bad luck. Had some bad luck, without question, in the championship game. I mean, if luck was on their side, they might have won. It says limping to the finish. This is in 1944. There's an article. Basically, it's called The Missing Rings for the New York Giants. This is according to these articles, this is their fourth missing ring. 29, 30, 33, and 44 missing rings for the New York Giants. The enthusiasm of 31 victory over the Redskins, the final game of the season, was dampened after the game when the Giants learned the league-leading rusher, Bill Paschal, had severely sprained his ankle in the second quarter, and his availability for the NFL championship game was in doubt. Now, if he had sprained his ankle in the second quarter and he had 3 weeks off before the championship game, he probably would have been able to play and maybe perform well. If he had 3 weeks off like the Packers did, he might have been able to play. The Giants' best player couldn't go. The NFL championship game was in doubt. Worry increased during the week as Paschal tested the ankle several times during the practice, but was unable to go full speed. Rookie Len Caligaro, who only ran, I'm gonna show you here. Bill Paschal ran the ball 196 times. Caligaro ran the ball 3 times all year. 3 times all year. That's who Bill Paschal's replacement was. Ran the ball 3 times all season long. Let's see here. Steve Owen, the coach of the Giants, had the team focus on sharpening the passing game that had shown improvement over the latter course of the season. The good news for the Giants was that Al Blozis was on short leave from the military and was available to play. The Packers, on the other hand, were healthy and rested, which wound up being huge. Not having played a game in 3 weeks. So the Giants got screwed. I mean, that had never happened today. In today's NFL would never happen. But the Giants got screwed. Packers are nice and fresh for the game. The Giants were not. Giants got screwed big time. Let's see. An NFL championship game record, 46,016 fans nearly filled the Polo Grounds on a crisp but not unpleasant afternoon. Commissioner Elmer Layden declared, and this is another thing too, before the game, that if the score was tied after 60 minutes, there would be no overtime period, that the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants would be declared co-champions. So even if the Giants, they got screwed, their best player wasn't playing. They lost another guy during the game. But even if they could wind up a tie, they still would have been the champions, co-champions. Steve Owen, the Giants coach, devised a new scheme to deal with Packer receiver extraordinaire Don Hutson, who had led the NFL in catches and yards for the 4th consecutive season, and who was tied with Bill Paschal for the league leading touchdowns with 9. Hudson's were all receiving, Paschal's were all rushing. So it really hurt the Giants' rushing game. The Giants deployed a 5-man line, but when a pass play was read, Yountz would drop back from his middle guard position and assist in covering Hudson. The strategy worked through the scoreless first quarter, while both teams repeated exchange punts. The bad news for the Giants was that Caligaro severely injured his shoulder, making a tackle on the first play of the game and did not return. So the guy that they put in to replace Paschal, the league leading rusher, They put in Caligari to replace him. He severely injured his shoulder making a tackle on the first play of the game, and he was out. Did not return. Meanwhile, Packer coach Curly Lambeau countered New York's defensive strategy by sending halfback Ted Fritsch or fullback Joe Laws, who had just one carry all year, into the ounces vacated position in the middle. Fritz began a long drive of a 21-yard ramble from the Green Bay 25-yard line. Laws followed several plays later with a 15-yard rush to the Giants' 27-yard line. On the next play, Fritz crashing through right tackle to the 1-yard line. However, New York's forward wall tightened up on a goal line stand. 2 rushes by Frisch each lost a yard, and Laws advanced back to the original line of scrimmage on 3rd down. Curly Lambeau's team decided to go for it on 4th down. Frisch took the ball, found the crease behind Charles Buckets Goldenberg, and went over for the score. So they went for it on 4th down. If the Giants could have held, they would have kept them out of the end zone. The Packers might have only scored 7 points all game. The Giants would have scored 7 points all game. They might have tied for the championship, but they couldn't hold them out on 4th down. So the Packers led 7-0. The Giants' offense struggled badly with Caligari out and Paschal out. Their 2 top running backs were out. Owens was forced to put the injured Paschal on the field as little more than a decoy. Making matters worse, the passing game was out of sync. New York punted every time that they had the ball, netting a paltry 24 yards in the first half with no first downs. They had 24 yards of offense. No first downs in the first half. That's all they could muster because a couple of the guys were injured. Green Bay began their final possession of the second quarter on their own 38-yard line, which wound up being the dagger. This is the dagger right here. On 3rd and 3, Hudson shook free from coverage and hauled in a 24-yard pass from tailback Irv Comp to the New York Giants' 30-yard line. On 3rd and 8, the Giants' obsessive focus on Hudson would prove costly. As Comp received the snap, Hudson crossed the New York secondary from his left end position. Right? From his left end position, he crossed them, drawing multiple defenders with him. Noticing this, Frisch alertly released to a vacated left flat area. Comp pump faked right to Hudson, boom, and then lobbed the ball to Frisch at the 11-yard line, where he jogged into the end zone untouched with just over 1 minute on the clock. 1 minute left to go, and he gave up a touchdown, which wound up being the dagger that sealed the deal. Hudson's point after was good, and the Packers are seemingly a comfortable 14-0 lead. It was a fight to the finish. The Giants returned to the field in the 3rd quarter with a new urgency. Paschal gave it one more try on the first possession before his ankle gave out, and he returned to the bench for good. Giants' best running back, possibly best player, could not go. Now, if the Packers lost their best player, Don Hudson, now we're talking a whole new ball game here. Just happens. Unfortunately, the Giants wound up losing their best ball player and not the Packers. New York engineered 2 first downs despite his absence and advanced to midfield before punting. The defense held, and the Giants moved from their own 14-yard line to the Green Bay 42 on 4 plays, including 2 completions by Herbert and 1 by Ward Cuff. But Laws halted the drive with an interception. They were moving, and they threw an interception. Livingston got the ball right back to the Giants with a pass depth of his own on the New York 45-yard line. Herbert kept to the air, Giants quarterback, as New York capitalized on good field position. Following a pass interference penalty on the Green Bay 42-yard line, Herbert launched a deep pass to Leibel, who was initially covered by Comp before the defender lost his footing. Leibel made the catch and was pushed out of bounds at the 1-yard line as the 3rd quarter ended. Ward Cuff finished the drive on the first play of the final quarter. Strong's point after was good. The Giants were within 1 score of at least a share in the NFL. It wasn't like let's just tie, maybe get into overtime, and hopefully maybe we can win or something. No, all they had to do was get 1 more touchdown, tie it up, and they would have been co-champions. From this point, both teams played the clock. The Packers kept the ball on the ground while Herbert valiantly fought for the tying score with his arm. Both defense held strong for most of the period. Herbert led the Giants on one final drive into Packer territory, but was intercepted inside the 20-yard line by Paul Dewar with less than 5 minutes to play. This essentially settled the outcome and preserved the title solely for the Green Bay Packers. Herbert and Cuff were valiant in defeat for the short-handed Giants. And they were short-handed, they were. Both defenses ruled the day. The Packers and Giants combined for 7 interceptions against only 11 completions. Hudson was limited to just Don Hudson, one of the greatest, absolute greatest all-time receivers of all time, was held to 2 catches for 47 yards. But Don Hudson did say, "Don't let anyone tell you the Giants are not a good team," the all-pro receiver said after the game. Defensively, they are the best in the league. They always hamper our offense when we play them. So, it was just, it is what it is. I mean, hey, you gotta win the game. The battle's on the field, and all. Oh, what's up there, buddy? Too many Packers in this story. Oh, I know. Damn Packers. Well, they were good back then too. They were very, very good. They were good. But I mean, it was just the Giants. It just, I said 1929. I mean, these are stories for another time. But I said 1929, 1930. 1933, they gave up the game-winning touchdown with like under 2 minutes to go. The Bears had to drive like 70 yards, and they won it on like a hook and lateral play. The Giants the Giants drove down. All they needed was a field goal, and they drove down into the Bears' territory, I believe it was, and they tried a trick play. There was a guy who was wide open, and the ball missed them. I mean, that was 1930. 1944 here, as I said, the Packers had 3 weeks to rest up for this championship game. The Giants' best player was injured. Then his backup got injured. He couldn't play. I mean, the Giants, well, you can't say they got you. I mean, it is what it is. Packers won fair and square. The Packers are the champions of the 1944 season. But, I mean, the Giants beat the Packers 24-0 on the same field a few weeks earlier. I mean, if things were a little more fair and each team had 3 weeks to rest up for this championship game, the outcome might have been a little bit different, but just was not meant to be. As I said, I mean, it's the way it was with the Giants. After the 1938 championship game, they beat the Green Bay Packers 23-17 at the Polo Grounds. That was the third championship for the Giants. After that, the Giants won a lot of playoff games / championship games, but they only won one more championship. That was in 1956. They lost the 39 championship. They lost the 41, the 44, the 46. They lost a playoff game in 43. They lost a playoff game in 50. They lost the 58 championship game, the 59 championship game, the 61, the 62, the 63 championship game. So the Giants won a lot of playoff / championship games, but unfortunately, after 1938, they only won one. It was a tough one. But once again, this 1944 was a very, very good team for the New York Football Giants. They got so close, but couldn't quite seal the deal. Well, guys, that pretty much wraps up the 1944 season for the New York Football Giants. Was the 20th season in their history. So I'll be back with the 1945 season of the New York Football Giants, which just happened to be the 21st season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.